I wasn't supposed to be at the laundromat that late, but the washing machine in the upstairs flat had finally given up on me. A loose belt, maybe. I didn't know. All I knew was the half-warm smell of detergent clinging to my hoodie and the dim hum of dryers that sounded like a heartbeat in a tiled room. She was there, already folding clothes. Not rushing, not dragging her feet either. Just steady. Shirts smoothed out with her palms, jeans pressed along the lines. She had this way of folding, deliberate, precise, like the whole world could fall apart but her towels would still be lined up edge to edge. I almost didn't say anything. Just walked past her and fed coins into the machine. But she glanced at me over the rim of her glasses, not a smile exactly, more like acknowledgement. "You're late," she said. Her voice wasn't accusing, more observant. I shrugged, trying to play it off. "Machine upstairs quit on me. Guess I'm freeloading off yours tonight." She made a small sound, half amusement, half something else. "That machine's older than you." I didn't answer right away. Just let the coins drop, one by one, listening to the hollow clinks. I could feel her still folding, not looking at me, but somehow present. When the washer started its slow churn, I sat down a few chairs away from her. Close enough to hear the fabric in her hands. Far enough not to crowd. The thing about her, my stepmother, though the word always felt too formal, too sharp, was that she noticed details. The way she asked if I'd eaten when I came in late. The way she remembered how I took my coffee, no sugar, extra hot. Even now, she glanced once at the socks I'd dumped into the basket. "Inside out," she murmured. I blinked. "What?" She nodded toward them. "You never turn them right side before washing. Makes folding harder." I laughed, quick and awkward. "Guess I like making life difficult." She smoothed the hem of a shirt, her thumb running along the edge a second too long. "Guess so." Silence again. Only the tumble of dryers filling in the space between us. I found myself staring at her hands. Strong in a way you don't expect until you notice. The knuckles a little dry, a ring catching the fluorescent light. I looked away before she caught me. Pretended to be interested in the vending machine instead. I checked my phone. Blank screen. No new messages. I thought about sending one, to a friend I hadn't seen in weeks, to a girl I used to know, but my thumb just hovered, then slipped the phone back into my pocket. "You're quiet tonight," she said, folding the last towel. I hesitated. Just tired. It wasn't untrue, but it wasn't the whole truth either. She stacked her neat pile into a bag, slipped her arms through the handles, and stood. For a second, I thought that was it, she'd leave, I'd stay behind with the hum of machines. But she paused, looking at me. Something unreadable in her eyes. "Don't forget to switch to the dryer. Or you'll regret it in the morning." A small thing. Practical. But the way she said it, low, almost softer than before, lingered longer than it should have. I nodded. "Yeah. Thanks." She walked toward the door, her steps quiet, fading into the hall. I watched the glass pane swing shut behind her, my reflection catching where hers had been. When I finally looked back down at my phone, a message blinked on the screen. From her. Just 6 words. "If you're still up, knock." I didn't knock right away. I sat there with the dryers humming, debating whether I'd imagined the text, whether maybe she'd meant to send it to someone else. But her name was clear on the screen. No mistake. By the time I made it upstairs, the hallway smelled faintly of chamomile and something sweeter, honey, maybe. Her door was open just a crack, a slice of warm light against the dark. She was in the kitchen when I stepped in, pouring hot water into 2 mugs. "Didn't think you'd come," she said, without looking over. "I almost didn't," I admitted. She handed me a mug, steam curling between us. tea helps with restless nights. I nodded, though I wasn't sure if it was for her or for me. We sat at the small table, mugs between our hands. She tucked her legs beneath her chair, and I noticed the way her shoulders softened once she settled. For a while, neither of us spoke. Just the sound of spoons against porcelain. Finally, she broke the silence. When I was your age, I used to think nights like this meant something. Like, if the world slowed down enough, you'd figure out where you belonged. Her voice was steady, but there was a tiredness to it. Not physical, deeper. And now? I asked. She gave a dry little laugh. Now I know the world doesn't hand out answers just because you're awake at 2 a.m. I wanted to say something back, something that would match the weight of her honesty, but the words stuck. Instead, I just nodded and took another sip. The tea was hot enough to sting, which felt right. She glanced at me then, really looked. You remind me of him sometimes. I froze. Of who? My son, she said softly. The way you fidget when you're nervous. The way you pretend not to care. She caught herself, the words hanging too heavy. It's not the same, I know. Just familiar. I looked down at my mug, tracing the rim with my finger. My chest tightened in a way I couldn't name. I wasn't sure if it was shame or something else. The air shifted after that. Heavier, but not unfriendly. Like we'd stumbled somewhere we weren't supposed to, and neither of us knew the way back. I tried to lighten it. Guess that explains why you keep telling me to eat properly. She smiled, small but real. Maybe. We drifted into silence again, but this time it wasn't empty. It was charged. The clock on the wall ticked louder than it should have. When I stood to leave, she walked me to the door. My hand brushed against hers as I passed the mug back. Not a full touch, just the edge of skin against skin. But she didn't pull away. For a second, the whole hallway felt suspended. Her eyes lingered on mine, and in that pause, something unspoken pressed close, almost unbearable. Then she stepped back, folding her arms as if to tuck it away. Good night, she whispered. And I don't know why that moment stayed with me, maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. The next few days I tried to convince myself it hadn't meant anything. That maybe the tea, the late hour, the brush of her hand, maybe all of it was just me reading too much. But then there were the small things. The way she lingered in the stairwell when she saw me coming home. The way her laughter caught, softer than before, when I made a joke. The way her eyes found me and stayed a fraction too long. It wasn't just me. I was sure of it. One evening, I was fixing the lock on my upstairs door, the key had been sticking again, when she appeared at the bottom of the stairs. A basket of mail in her hands. You'll break it if you keep forcing it, she said. I wiped my palms on my jeans, half smiling. You offering to fix it? She raised an eyebrow. Maybe. If you ask nicely. I don't know why, but the way she said it made my throat tighten. A simple tease, but heavy with something else. She stepped closer, the mail balanced against her hip. I could smell the faint trace of her perfume, mixed with laundry soap. Her shoulder brushed mine as she reached to test the lock herself. Too close. Close enough that if I turned, my cheek would have met hers. But then, footsteps in the hallway. A neighbor. Keys jangling. A door shutting too loudly. She stepped back quickly, almost too quickly. The spell broke. I laughed, awkward, scratching the back of my neck. Guess it's not my night for repairs. She handed me a letter, one that had been tucked inside her pile. This was in my box by mistake. Our fingers touched again as I took it. Longer this time. Deliberate? Or just an accident she didn't correct? I couldn't tell. Her eyes flicked up, caught mine, then darted away. You should, be careful, she murmured. I wanted to ask what she meant. Careful with what, the lock, or her? But the words jammed in my throat. Instead, I followed her downstairs when she left, both of us pretending it was coincidence. In the kitchen, she set the mail down and filled the kettle. I leaned against the doorway, watching her hands. She noticed, paused, then busied herself with the cups. You don't have to stay, she said. I know. But I didn't move. The kettle whistled, sharp and thin, filling the silence we didn't know how to break. She poured the water, slid one mug toward me. Her hand trembled, just barely, when it passed mine. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Just the sound of tea settling in porcelain, and the pulse in my ears. Her lips parted, like she was about to say something. My chest tightened. I leaned in, without meaning to. Not enough to call it anything, but close. Too close. She didn't move. Didn't look away. But just before the distance could close, she stepped back, quick, almost startled. We shouldn't, she said. Barely a whisper. The words didn't erase the moment. If anything, they made it sharper. It was a Sunday afternoon, the kind that carried no weight, no purpose. The street outside was half empty, the sun low enough to stretch shadows thin. I found her sitting on the front step, a mug balanced on her knee, staring at nothing in particular. I almost walked past. Almost. But then she looked up, and the way her eyes held mine, tired, softer than usual, pulled me down to sit beside her. Neither of us spoke right away. The neighborhood hummed around us, distant lawn mower, a car door slamming 2 houses down, a kid's laugh carried by the wind. She set her mug down carefully, like it was fragile. You ever wonder if you're waiting for something? Without knowing what. I shifted, my hands stuffed deep into my pockets. All the time. Her lips curved, faintly. And? Do you figure it out? Not really, I said. Mostly just feels like I'm standing still while everyone else moves. She nodded, slow. Then she glanced at me, long enough for me to notice the way her thumb brushed the edge of her mug again and again. A nervous tell. Sometimes, she said, voice low, I think I've already had the important part. That everything after is just filler. I didn't know what to say to that. The words lodged in my chest, heavy. Finally, I murmured, doesn't feel like filler to me. Her head turned, eyes on me now, sharp and searching. You shouldn't say things like that. Why not? Because. She exhaled, almost a laugh, but not quite. Because you're young. Because you don't know what you're asking for. I looked away, across the street, where nothing important was happening. Maybe I do. The silence stretched. She pressed her palms flat against her knees, grounding herself. You don't understand how dangerous this is. There it was. The crack in the wall. Not anger, not scolding. Fear. I wanted to tell her I did understand. That every night I thought about her, every pause in the stairwell, every touch that wasn't really a touch, it wasn't nothing. It couldn't be. Instead, what came out was smaller. I notice you. Her breath caught, just barely audible. She turned her face away, but not before I saw it, the flicker of something she'd tried hard to bury. The sound of a car pulling into the driveway across the street broke the moment. She tensed, shoulders drawing in. Someone will see, she whispered. I swallowed. Do you care? Her hand shifted, brushing against mine on the step. A graze, nothing more. But the weight of it was unbearable. She didn't pull away this time. The world shrank to that small space between our hands, the air thick with everything unsaid. Her voice trembled when she spoke again. What are we doing? The question hung there, raw, unanswerable. And I had no words, only the ache of wanting to try. The next week, she disappeared. Not literally, not the way you lose someone to distance or death, but she pulled herself out of reach. Her door stayed closed. No light spilling from the crack, no casual greetings on the stairs. Even the mail pile vanished faster than usual. I told myself she was busy, or tired, or simply needed space. But the silence pressed in heavier each day. One night I caught her leaving as I was coming home. She had her keys in one hand, a jacket slung over her arm. Her hair pulled back, neater than usual. She looked put together. Like someone preparing to meet another version of herself. Going out? I asked before I could stop myself. She paused, eyes flicking to mine, then away. Just dinner. With? I didn't finish the question. She didn't answer anyway. Just forced a smile, brief, not reaching her eyes. Don't wait up. The door clicked shut behind her, and I stood there, key in hand, like some kid waiting for permission that wasn't mine to want. I didn't see her the next day. Or the one after. When I finally did, she was in the kitchen, rinsing dishes. The radio was on low, some old ballad slipping through static. She didn't turn when I walked in. You've been gone, I said. Not gone. Her voice was too steady. Just busy. I leaned against the counter, watching her hands in the sink. With who? She froze for a second, just one. Then she kept scrubbing, water splashing higher than it needed to. You shouldn't ask questions you don't want answers to. The words hit harder than I expected. My throat tightened, but I forced a laugh that came out wrong. So that's it? We just pretend the last few weeks didn't happen? Finally she turned, drying her hands slowly. Her eyes found mine, but softer this time, almost pitying. I can't do this, she whispered. There was more in her pause. A story tucked behind the careful edges of her face. I knew it without her saying, there had been someone before me. Maybe someone still hovering. An ex, a memory, a shadow that hadn't left. But she didn't give me details, and I didn't ask. The silence was its own kind of answer. I wanted to push. To ask if he was the reason she'd gone quiet, the reason she couldn't meet my eyes. But instead I nodded, as if that settled something. Back upstairs, I pulled out my phone. Typed a message, "You don't have to hide from me." I stared at it for too long. Then erased it, one letter at a time, until the screen was blank again. That night, her light stayed off. And I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused. Like life forgot to finish the sentence. It happened in the kitchen again. Late evening, when the house had that muffled stillness, fridge humming, clock ticking too loud, floor creaking in familiar spots. She was making tea, same as before, though her movements felt careful now. Guarded. I stood in the doorway, not sure if I should stay or go. Finally, I said, "You've been avoiding me." She didn't turn around. Just set the kettle down, steady. I've been managing. The word stung. Managing. Like I was a problem to be solved. I stepped closer, leaning against the counter. Did I do something wrong? Her shoulders tightened. You didn't do anything. Then why does it feel like I did? She closed her eyes for a second, then exhaled. Because I let it feel that way. The kettle began to whistle, shrill in the small room. She reached to shut it off, her hands moving quicker than usual. When she finally turned, she didn't meet my gaze right away. You're young, she said quietly. And I can't afford to be reckless anymore. I swallowed, my chest tight. You think this is just me being young? She looked up then, eyes sharp, pained. Isn't it? I shook my head. No. It's not. The silence that followed felt heavier than any words. I could hear my pulse in my ears, her breath catching just slightly. She set the mugs down on the counter, fingers lingering on the rim. Then, softer, almost breaking, "Do you have any idea what this would cost me?" I didn't answer right away. My mind filled with imagined versions, neighbors talking, family disapproving, her past dragging her back down. I wanted to tell her I'd carry it, whatever it was. But the words felt too thin, too fragile for the weight in her eyes. Instead, I said, "I don't want anything from you. Just, don't pretend it's not there." That cracked something. Not a collapse, not a confession, but a shift. Her hand pressed against her forehead, her laugh low and broken. "God," she whispered, "you make it so hard to stay sensible." I didn't move. I just stood there, waiting. Letting the air fill with everything neither of us could take back. When she finally looked at me, the wall was gone. Just tiredness, and something raw beneath it. Her hand brushed mine on the counter, small, tentative, trembling. This time, I didn't pull back. We stood there like that, skin against skin, not speaking. Not needing to. She exhaled, almost a sigh, and whispered, "Okay." That was it. No promises, no declarations. Just that one word. And somehow, it was more than enough. Time didn't fix anything in a clean sweep. It never does. But slowly, the sharpness of those nights dulled into something steadier. We didn't fall into a routine so much as we allowed one to grow between us. Small, unspoken patterns. Her tea in the evenings. My black coffee in the mornings. Sometimes we'd meet in the hallway at 8:47 a.m., me heading out, her just coming in from a walk. A nod, a half-smile. Nothing dramatic. But every time, I felt that same tug, like something important had been exchanged without words. There were setbacks. Weeks when she seemed far away, evenings when I thought maybe she'd closed the door for good. But then I'd find a thermos left on my step, still warm. Or she'd knock on my door, pretending she needed help with a light bulb. We never called it anything. Maybe because naming it would have made it fragile. Maybe because neither of us trusted words the way we trusted silences. But it was there, real as the steam rising from her tea, real as the small ways life adjusted to fit us both inside it. One Sunday, months later, we sat on the same front step where she'd once asked me if I was waiting for something. The street was quiet again, different season, same stillness. She nudged my shoulder lightly, almost playful. "Remember what you said back then?" she asked. I frowned, trying to place it. "You told me it didn't feel like filler," she reminded me. Her smile was faint, but it reached her eyes this time. I nodded, the memory catching. "I meant it." She didn't answer right away. Just sipped her tea, watching the late sunlight break across the pavement. Finally, she said, "Me too." And that was it. No sweeping declarations. No sudden collapse into each other's arms. Just two people sitting side by side, knowing they'd chosen to stay. Life wasn't perfect. It wasn't supposed to be. But it was ours now, piece by piece. Sometimes, when I'd hear the kettle whistle or see her fold a towel with that careful precision, I'd think about all the moments that could have tipped another way, doors I almost didn't knock on, words I almost didn't say. And then I'd glance at her, and she'd catch me looking, and without either of us speaking, I'd know, we were exactly where we were meant to be. It wasn't a love story in the usual sense. It was quieter, humbler. But it stayed. And maybe that's the point.